Was Jesus black? See, the real answer to that would be, it doesn't really matter what skin color he had. What mattered was his teachings. But then again, since the people that are asking this, they're not just asking it out of innocent curiosity, no sir, they're doing it because of political reasons and oftentimes racist reasons against white people. So I am going to answer it. Because the thing is, they actually misrepresented it. They're not asking the question, they're making a statement. They're saying Jesus was black. And what do they base it on? The book of Revelations, without even knowing a word of Greek, that is. So as a aficionado of literal translations, let's jump into interlinear English, Greek. And by the end of this video, not only you will know what Jesus's complexion was based on that passage, the literal translation of that passage, no twisting. And most importantly, no one will ever be able to use these verses to push this nonsense against you ever again. Alright, first and foremost, I'm going to jump into the King James Version that you can find into the Bible Gateway. We can swap versions if you want, but just to begin, Revelation 1:14-15, this is the English version, which is the one that is usually manipulated in order to achieve this weird changing of fact. We read, 14, His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire. 15. And his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burnt in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. So already, where are they getting that Jesus was black? Well, first and foremost, they're telling you, look, it's saying that his hair had the consistency of wool, which people on earth have a hair that is woolly, and they say black people, meaning black Africans. And then on 15, we are told that his feet were like unto fine brass. Now, this is the King James Version, which I thought was funny because brass is kind of a dull gold, so of course, they're not going to use this one. They're going to use something like the Living Bible, for instance. Verse 15, his feet gleamed like burnished bronze. So they're going to use the word bronze, as you can see. Some versions say brass, some versions say bronze. Of course, they're going to tell you bronze, because when you think of bronze, you think of the Olympics, which is kind of this brownish color, and boom, Jesus was black. All right, let's jump into interlinear Greek, shall we? So rather than looking for a version that we think might be the best one, let's do it word by word ourselves. Above here, we have the original Greek text, and then on top, we've got a transliteration for easier read. We're going to read the red part, which is a translation. I'll actually add a few words. Anyways, let's go. Verse 14, and the head of him and the hairs are white, as if wool, white as snow, and the eyes of him are like a flame of fire. This already. What we are seeing here is not a discussion on the feel one would get if he were able to touch the hair. We are talking about a comparison to increase the validity or salience of the adjective used. So, they're telling you his head, by the way, and his hair were white. Head, white. Hair, white. So imagine in a conversation, someone is like, really? And then they were white, and then the person responds, yes, white as wool, white as snow. To figure this out, you don't need to be trained in linguistics, you need to be trained in honesty, because it's obvious. Not only it's obvious just by reading it, that it's using both snow and wool as a color qualifier. What's the color of wool? White. What's the color of snow? White. So what was the color of his hair and his head? White. No one is talking about consistency here. But not only here, but anywhere. Anywhere. I have looked into this with two more linguists, and in no period literature used in Greek was this a form to express the texture of anything described. Not even a single time. Every single time an expression similar to this is used in any form of literature of the period and preceding times, it's a descriptor of color. So not only his hair is white, but so is his face, his head. Continuing. Now let's have a look at verse 1:15. And the feet of him are like fine bronze, as in a furnace having been refined, and the voice of him is like the voice of waters many. Man, what a beautiful verse. Poetically, it's amazing. Even imagining such a majestic, glorious entity. That's what I'm more interested in. But here we are, I guess. So, this is the word that we are working with, and as we can see, it can be translated both as brass or bronze. So it's not really a matter of which one is correct, it's more of a situation of, we're talking about some kind of alloy of copper, right? Some kind of combination of copper and tin, copper and zinc. I have nothing against translating this as bronze. Here's the thing though, where is the bronze? In a furnace. And when he says having been refined, in fact, a better translation for this is that it was burnt. In fact, it was fired. I know that this doesn't really sound correct in English, but that would be an even more literal translation. Fired was applied onto the bronze, making it glow in a furnace. So, I'm going to provide a visual aid. What did his feet, and therefore most likely the skin of his body, look like? Like this. This is bronze being molten inside a furnace. It is a glowing, bright, incandescent white. How this becomes this is a manipulation. It's a lie. Jesus, black Jesus of African origin. It's a lie. Having established this, if I was intellectually dishonest, I would leave it like that. See, Jesus was white. But I'm not intellectually dishonest, and I'm not going to do what they do. What does this mean? I think it's quite obvious that no human being on this planet, on this earth, has a complexion that looks anything like this. Moreover, do remember that this is not a description of Jesus as he was walking around with his apostles, for instance, or Jesus as he was teaching the Sermon on the Mount. No, this is a description of Jesus as a resurrected being of glory. This is Jesus in his godly form, not his human mortal form. So, whatever representation we see here anyways would not be apt as an indicator of what he would have liked in human form as he was living in Bethlehem, Jerusalem, as he was crucified, and how he interacted with mortals. But they don't tell you that. They are more than happy to use it to tell you, you see, Jesus was a black African because it says he's black and his hair was woolly. But they don't tell you that that's not it's not an indication. Even if this was the correct translation, and I've just proven beyond any shadow of a doubt that it's not, but even if it was, it wouldn't matter because it's a representation of a resurrected Jesus, not an indication onto how he looked during his mortal ministry. And if you think about it, it really works. This is the color of his skin, plus white hair, plus his head is glowing white, and his eyes have flames of fire, which should have been really the hint that unless you think that Jesus went around preaching with eyes of flames, unless that's what you were imagining, then it shows you that this is a godly form. Now, if you're offended that the way God looks is like this, you'll have to take it with him. I'm just telling you what the book actually says. And in fact, it doesn't even matter if you believe in God or not. Because if you believe in God, and you're a Christian, you believe in Scripture, I've given you now what the Scripture actually says. You believe in Scripture? This is what God looks like as a resurrected being. And if you're not a believer, at least you know how the book actually describes it. Because unfortunately, I think there are plenty of people out there that might hear liars that try to push this, and because they hate racism, they don't know the scriptures and they don't know the original language, they're going to be inclined to believe this as a way to either virtue a signal if they're doing it improperly, or to just be accepting, tolerant, but being tolerant of a lie gives you no credit. Be receptive of truth, even if you're just talking about a secular linguistic truth. And to anyone who comes here in the comments and tries to admonish me, like including fellow Christians, and tell me, but why do you care? Why did you have to make this video? It doesn't matter what it looked like. Well, don't tell me. I'm not the one who is using this passage specifically to manipulate people's perceptions of the linguistic and cultural truth or what's actually being told. I'm responding. So if you have a problem with people fixating on his skin, ethnicity, genetic makeup, yeah, that's not me. I'm just responding. You should have a problem with the people that have been pushing this nonsense for years now. The final question of this discussion here is going to be the following. So what did he look like during his lifetime here? And the thing is that the Bible never really gives us a physical description of the Lord, and personally I don't think that that's random. I think they don't tell us anything. We don't know his eye color, we don't know his hair color, we don't know his skin color, we don't know if he was tall, we don't know if he was average height, we don't know anything. Isn't that interesting? They never mention anything. You will not find a single verse in the entire Bible that will tell you physically, will give you a description of Jesus. And I think that that's intentional because, yes, that's not the core of the matter. But if you really had to try and use reason and logic to figure this one out, then I would say he probably just looked like all the other apostles, like a local from Jerusalem and that area. Why? Well, because if he looked any different in a significant manner, then Judas wouldn't have needed to kiss him to indicate or to point him out to the Romans during his arrest. Or couldn't he just say, it's the black guy from Africa? Or couldn't he just say, oh, it's the blonde Nordic guy with blue eyes? So what that means is that I would imagine he would have had, most likely, because we need to work on probabilities, he either had black or brown hair and white or olive skin, as people do in that region. And possibly the level of tan would have changed depending on which moment in his life. Because people often picture Jesus as having the same haircut, the same length of beard, and the exact same skin tone for all 33 years. It would have changed. If he spent more time with Joseph, maybe working in helping him out with his job, then I imagine he would have tanned. And other times, so maybe if he spent more time inside, maybe with his mother, perhaps his skin would have been lighter. His hair would have had different lengths throughout his life. However, the reality is the following. I have provided this because there are people whom, for propagandistic intentions, have been changing the linguistic facts to push racial division. But what matters is his message, his word, and his resurrection. This is the truth about the passages. Now forget about it and focus on who he is and what he said. If you're enjoying this video so far, please take a moment to check out my Patreon page. With as little as a $5 support, you can help us ensure that we can continue to produce high quality and high researched content. And at the same time, you get access to polls, extra videos, unlisted streams, and much more. Thank you so much.